Go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So today's show is going to be a special episode because those that know that this podcast was essentially built as a legacy tool, and this individual and her husband have essentially taken that concept and made it tenfold, right? They're not only building legacy tool, they're actually actively helping kids build their legacies now before they actually even come of age. So obviously, we're talking to Sheri, and I like whoever I'm talking to, I like to give a particular nickname. So after doing my due diligence, I was like, okay, what kind of nickname should I give her? What kind of nickname should I give her? And then I came up with it. The Kidpreneur boss is who she is and who she will forever be through the Boss Uncaged community. So the floor is yours, Sheri. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about you and what would you like to talk about today?
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm really excited to be with you all today. So my name is Sheri Jones. I'm based in Perth, Australia. I'm originally born overseas in Africa and then moved here when I was young. Me and my husband have 4 children. Originally, I was a primary school teacher, so went down the career path. I'm really passionate about educating young people. And then in that space, when I started to have my own children, I really realized that as much as the school system is great for kids, it's really not teaching our kids financial literacy and business skills. And so what Ben and I decided is we really wanted to teach that to our own children so that we could unlock financial freedom for them and not necessarily have to, they could escape the rat race before they essentially ever had to enter it. So that's really where we started from. And then we launched Youth in Business back in 2016 and have had a whole bunch of fun working with kids around the world and predominantly here in Australia to really launch and grow and scale successful businesses.
I mean, going back to my open, I think is a phenomenal thing. I mean, in the US, we always hear about 501c3s and getting donations to kind of give back to kids, but you guys actually made a profitable business that you're doing exactly that. And one of the techniques that you guys use that I saw, and I think it was in a video with Trent, your son, or it was Heath, your younger son, and Ben, and they were doing a bank serial number checker. So, and I think most people, they don't realize that, okay, they look at a $5, and think that both $5 are the same value. I want you to kind of talk about how did you guys even come up with that concept to kind of review the serial numbers to realize that $1 may be worth more than another dollar?
Sure. So originally the concept, my husband runs another business called Complete Prospecting, and that's actually in the silver and gold space in terms of precious metals. And so one of our contacts there had taught our children about that. And we thought that was a really cool concept, that there are those unique AA and so on currency here in Australia. So with $20 notes and $50 notes that are actually worth more. So we thought that was a cool thing. Often kids love to collect things, whether it's stamps or, Pokemon cards. And so we thought it was cool to put out there and really show kids that, hey, look, you can be, making some currency and some notes are worth a lot more than others. So yeah, that's sort of how it came about.
So, I mean, obviously, I love the fact that your kids are involved, but you're actually helping other kids. But it's not just about finances and monetizing. You guys are essentially word travelers as well. I think back in 2006, you guys traveled to Germany. In 2007, you traveled to South Africa. 2013, you was in Paris. 2017, you was in a hot air balloon, and then in China in 2019 in the Great Wall. So I want you to kind of talk about how does this travel aspect kind of play into educating kids and educating your kids about the world finances.
Sure. So Ben and I have always loved traveling. After we got married, it was always on my bucket list to do a year traveling around the world. So we were lucky enough to be able to do that. We'd been married for a year and we traveled around the world. We spent 4 months in the States and Canada, and then 4 months in Europe, and then some time in Israel, actually, and back in Africa. And since then, obviously, we love traveling, and we wanted to share that with our kids. So when we started having our kids, we wanted to keep that up. So our kids have been really lucky. Like you say, they have been to New Zealand and Bali and China. And it was really fun for us to take the kids to China because we actually took a group of clients with us. So some of the things that we offer our clients is to be able, a lot of kids love product-based businesses, right? They can touch it, they can feel it, they get excited about it. And so we actually put a group together. This was obviously prior to COVID. Where we took around 50 clients with us to China. And we took our kids as well. We love to take our kids to as many things as we can, prior to COVID, we'd run large events with, hundreds of parents and kids in the room. And we'd always take one or two of our kids with us, the ones that were old enough to attend. So what we find is kids learn so much traveling, and you can obviously, it's a great opportunity to teach them about, currency and, value, and how, especially for kids with their own businesses, profit margins and, how all that comes together in business while they're traveling and having a great time as well.
So I'm happy that you ended that sentence with profit margins. And part of your testimonials, I would think probably one of your best testimonials was Will Deet, right? This kid is not a kid. Like he's been reborn 7 times. Like literally, this dude is a complete boss. I want you to kind of talk about his story for a little bit. Because I mean, even in that video with his testimonial, he had talked about currently right now, they have grossed somewhere between $900,000 in a year. So I want you to talk about like the philosophy, the system that you put in place, and how did you guys help him grow from where he was to where he is today?
Sure. So when Will and his mum Lisa joined our program, I think Will was around 13. And at the time, they were actually sourcing products from China. They'd done a couple of trips over there, filled up their suitcases, come back, and they were selling at markets. And it was sort of very low key. But, this was back, I think, when we launched, they were one of our first clients. So this is 2016. And so what we found is, as the conversations we were having with our networks, is that a lot of people wanted to know, wow, how do I do that? Either as an adult business owner or even as a teen. And so what happened was we helped Will and Lisa really package up their knowledge of, investing their suppliers on the ground, how you source products, what are the profit margins and numbers that you're looking for in particular niches. And we were able to help them really massively grow their business. So be able to get it out there. And they were running events. Will was started to sell at markets and do very successfully, like those, I'm not sure what you call them in America. We call them pop-up stores here. The ones that in the big shopping centers, you hire the space in the middle, you literally put up your products, and you do that for a couple of weeks, and was selling really successfully. I think the best one he ever did was about 70,000 Australian in 4 weeks. So I think that's probably around 38,000 American, if I'm right, based on standard currency conversion now. So in a matter of a couple of weeks. So it was really exciting. So basically they packaged up their knowledge and as well as selling their products, they started selling an information product around how other people could replicate what they were doing with their system.
Yeah, I think that's definitely powerful. And I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. You brought 50 clients with you to China, but I want the listener to understand, like, your clients are not necessarily just kids. They're also the parents as well. So I want you to kind of talk about it. I mean, from the education standpoint, you're a teacher, and then I want you to talk about like Ben, and obviously you two come together and make the quality work to where people can kind of get ahead. So I want you to talk about the system that you guys have in place with you being an educator and Ben's background.
Sure. So in terms of the program, like you say, it is a family program. We find that it's a great experience for parents and kids to do together, because it's quite a bonding experience. Your kids, as a family, you have a common goal, you're working towards things, and you can really cater to the strengths within the family. So we've actually had quite a couple of families in the program. The parents the business has done so well, they've been able to quit their full-time jobs and actually work for the kids in the business. So that's been really exciting. It's become the full-time venture of the whole family and has really brought them closer together. So that's just a nice sort of byproduct. In terms of myself and Ben, obviously being a teacher, I think I love systems. And so when Ben and I came up with this idea, Ben's a real big picture thinker. He's the natural entrepreneur that's always been running little side hustles since he was young, and always had his, fingers in lots of pies. And so when we came up with this idea, I think it works really well, because I'm the teacher and I help sort of structure his thoughts, and we put together a system. So originally our son Trent was 7. We sort of had friends over for dinner, and he was like, hey, he made these little products and he was trying to sell them to our friends when they came for dinner. So we all sort of had a chuckle. But when our friends went home, we sort of sat Trent down and we said, hey, that's great. If you want to sell something, how can we provide value? And so we talked about the exchange of value, whether it's a product or a service-based business, and talked to him about what he would like to pursue from there. So I think one of the best things that a parent can do if their kid does show an interest in entrepreneurial business is really just support them along that way. It could have been quite easy with a 7-year-old to brush it off and go, oh, we'll get back to that, when you're a teenager. But for us, we really wanted to nurture that spark in him and really grow it. So, So I think Ben and I bring different things to the table, but it works really well in terms of the big picture thinking and then me putting the systems and the day-to-day things in place in terms of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that you brought up systems, and I could definitely see that obviously you guys are built on the foundations of systems. And one of the systems that you guys kind of put out there, I think it was on your website, was 8 money skills every kid should learn. And again, I don't want people to look at these as just skills. Essentially, these are micro systems. So if you don't mind, can you talk about that a little bit, and how does that really help kids, and not only the kids, but the parents understand what money is and how to utilize it?
Sure. I think a great place to start with any young person is what they're naturally interested in. Because as a young person, if things get too hard, it's not something that they're enjoying, they're not going to want to do it, right? Like, if, for the parents out there, when have you last had to remind your kids to get on tech time, right? You don't, whether it's their iPad or their laptop or YouTube, like, they're on there because they love it. So I think if you can find something that your kids really enjoy and tap into that and find a way to monetize that, that works really well. So we've had a couple of teenage girls in the program that love social media and love being on there. And so what they've done is turned that into an agency side of like managing content. So a lot of, business owners don't have time to put their content out there. So they've put together a business so they'll help post regular content on there and keep, their social media audiences engaged, and they provide a little report at the end of the month. So they've built something around what they're passionate about. So one of our entrepreneurs, Josh, super passionate about surfing. Here in Australia, our UV rating is totally extreme. You can get burnt very, very quickly here in the sun. So Josh, a lot of surfers won't wear traditional sunscreen here because when they pop up on the board, they slip. So Josh created a purpose non-slip sunscreen, and it's vegan, and he went through we helped Josh. He joined the program. He had this product he wanted to get out to the world. So we helped him crowdfund his idea because he needed, I think, $10,000 to get his first batch of product through from his manufacturer. And so now Josh is stocked in like over 100 stores in Australia. He's actually wanting to break into the US market because obviously with the summers being, different times of year, it works really well. And so he's really turned his passion for surfing into a product that goes with that. So I think if you can find what your kids are already enjoy doing and see how you can monetize that is a really great way to start. So in our training in Youth in Business, we have a 5-step system. And the first part of that is to pick a winning idea. Now, on our website, we have a list of 101 great ideas, which is a really great place to start. If your kids aren't sure, you literally go through and highlight a couple that stand out to your kids. And that can be a really great place to start. They're ideas that our clients have tested or our kids have tested and that we know that are going to work and be winning ideas. So I think if you can build the business around what your kids enjoy, they almost never have to work a day in their life because it's something that they're naturally passionate about.
So let's roll that into another system that you guys have is a 10-point checklist, right? So, I mean, obviously you're talking about the 8 money skills, and then like what's actually on that checklist and how does that help someone stay in alignment to their goals?
Fantastic. So the 10-point checklist is really designed once you've got a couple of ideas, either of your own or off that resource that we just spoke about. Then what you want to do is run your ideas through this checklist. It really just gives you some clarity around your idea. So is it easy to make and sell your product or service? If you're wanting to come up with a product that's going to take hours and like say 10 hours to produce one, it's probably not going to be worth your time, right? So things like that to really guide you through. Another point on there is there a lot of red tape or legalities around what it is that you're selling? If you have something in the space of, so Josh, when he started out in the skincare space, he wasn't actually sure because here in Australia, we have quite specific ratings in terms of skincare. I know you do in the States as well. And so making sure basically that another point on the 10-point checklist is it easy or do you know groups of people that you can go out to straight away to make sales? Because in Youth in Business, we really want kids to hit the ground running and make sales really fast. And so setting goals is a great way to do that. And so we actually kick off the program with our favorite challenge. It's called the $20 challenge. And that's where kids literally start with just $20, and they have to go out and use that money to either create a product or go out and, sell a service, and really see with that initial seed money and then growing it and reinvesting it over and over throughout the month, literally what is possible with $20. And the great thing is that a lot of the kids learn that they didn't even need the $20 to start with. They might grab a couple of pictures of what they're planning on selling, go and promote it online. And a lot of our kids have woken up to literally hundreds of dollars of sales the next day. And they're like, hey, I didn't even need the $20. So it's really cool. It's so that's step 2 in our system: sell it before you build it. Really getting out and promoting what your kids want to do without putting a lot of capital into it. We want kids to have success and really build their business around the sales that they're getting, and listen to what their clients are telling them. The great thing about selling it before you build it is that clients will say, hey, do you have this in this color? Or do you have an organic range? Or I'm really looking for this. And then you can build your business and be guided by what your target audience is looking for.
So I think it's definitely phenomenal that you guys come in with systems, you come in with these checklists, and ideally I think that's a duality, right? It's for the kids to kind of learn structure, but it also keeps the parents in alignment. But then obviously the challenges is more playful for the kids. So I want to kind of talk about your $1,000 club or your $10,000 club. Like, how does that work? And obviously from a teacher standpoint, I'm assuming that was probably one of your ideas.
Yes, I think it was back in the day. So what we found was we ran our first ever event. This was literally just an idea. And then we only took a handful of clients that we really wanted to work with one-on-one really, really well. And so we started with this $20 challenge. And what we found was the first group of clients that we took through, so we run it as a competition. So whoever makes the most sales wins, but it's really friendly. The kids encourage each other along the way, which makes it really fun. And what we found was within our second group, someone had hit $1,000 a month. And that sort of became the target that all the kids wanted to do. Like, hey, I've got to do $1,000 in my first month. So I was like, hey, well, let's give the kids, kids love trophies and awards and being recognized, right? And so we decided that we would create this $1,000 club award. So it's like a silver trophy. I wish I had one here to show you, that the kids get for reaching a 1K club. And all that takes is $1,000 or more of sales in their first 30 days. Now, we literally probably have nearly 100 kids that have done that since we've launched that award in the last 4 to 5 years. So most of the kids that join the program actually hit that. So it's really exciting. I liken it to the 5-minute mile. Back in the day, no one thought that was possible. Or everyone would say, oh, it's not physical for the, it's not capable for the physical body to do that. And once one person had done it, then there was hundreds others that followed, and even teenagers, right? And it became possible, and it just opens people's minds to what is possible. And so the purpose of why we created these clubs is to really give kids, we want them to aim for the stars. So that's a great place to start. And then we found a lot of our kids that had businesses that were really growing and scaling was that they were hitting $10,000 a month of sales. Now, a lot of the mums and the dads might be like, hey, I want to be doing that. And so we created this 10K Club Award, and that's a big gold cup that we give out to kids that do that. And it's great. So our 3 boys, we have 3 boys that run a business together now. They're a bit older. My eldest is 15, 11, and 9. And so their best month together working on their business, last year they did over 30,000 Australian, which is just under 20,000 American in 1 month. So our boys are in the 10K club, and it's just something for the kids to aim for. So it's pretty exciting. And we put them up on our website and people can go check out their stories. So if you're thinking, wow, I wonder how they did that, go check out their stories. We even have some videos of them sharing how they did it, and really learn and get some tips around how, other people can too.
So, with that, usually these type of clubs and the awards that you're talking about, essentially you're talking about maybe a silver, a gold. So I'm asking the question, like, when are we going to get to the 50,000 club? I think Deeth should be pretty close to that, right? And are you guys planning on going that road to kind of make this third and final club?
Well, I think it would be cool to do 100K club, or even a million K club, like a million in a year. We've had one of the kids, Will, as you mentioned, hit that. We'd love to have a couple more, but definitely that's something that we're looking at in terms of like a platinum award. Because the sky's the limit. And the great thing is a lot of these kids, like Josh with the seagull milk, the non-slip sunscreen that I was talking about, his goal was to have a business that was up and running successfully. So when he finished school, he could literally step into the business and run it full time. And that's what he's been able to do. So I think the perfect time for someone to start a business is when you have no mortgage, no kids, pretty few distractions. Yeah, you have school, but kids have a lot of, time, but often us adults have a lot more distractions. So it's a perfect time for them to really grow a business while they're still in school, and then they can step into it and run it full time when they graduate or even in college.
So, I mean, obviously from the education standpoint and talking about your background, I mean, you have different levels of kids, right? And I think referring back to Will, in Will's video, he said, I think that he went from being in physical school to homeschool so he could focus more on his business. I don't think every kid falls into that category. So like when you're having conversations with the parents, how are you guys then guiding them as far as how much time should that kid put into that business?
Sure. Great question. So Will was a bit of a unique situation because they were taking clients to China regularly with their business and showing them the ropes in China of how to source products, how to find suppliers on the ground. He was doing a lot of travel. And so for them, he's actually the youngest of 3 children. So he was working with his older siblings who had graduated high school. And so they really wanted to work together and grow the business. So because he was the youngest, because they were doing a lot of travel, that made sense for him. Saying that, none of our other kids in the program that I'm aware of that weren't homeschoolers to begin with have ever actually left traditional school to do that. So my 4 kids are all in full-time school. My eldest is very academic. He does like very, very well in the hardest sort of extension classes. He wants to go to college after high school, and he's successfully doing that and managing his business at the same time. So in terms of the time commitment, we really are here as parents to support the kids when they want to work on their business. So my kids will have months where they are so focused, they have a goal they want to hit, might be a gaming laptop or a new phone. And so they're like, hey, how can I do that? And they reverse engineer the steps. If I make this many sales in my business, then I will generate this amount of profit so I can afford that. So it's giving them the skills to know that they can achieve what they want. They can set their goals and they can achieve it, and put the steps into place to make that happen. So I think my kids are at school full time, and they literally work around it. Now my eldest is 15. So what we find is a lot of his friends are actually a lot busier than Trent because they have part-time jobs. They're working at McDonald's, they're working at, retailers. And so they're actually working way more than what Trent's actually doing because he has the leverage of his own business. So I think having their own business can be, they can actually be working a lot less. And because their hourly rate often works out a lot higher, they can get a lot more done in less time than those kids going out and getting a traditional job in their high school sort of years.
So let's unpack this a little bit. And I want to peel back some layers on the onion to like your story to a certain extent, right? Obviously, like you went into education, like you grew into business, but I want you to time travel back and kind of tell us more so about you in your earlier days or your adolescence. Like what kind of upbringing did you have growing up?
Sure. So I was raised, my father passed away when I was very young. So I was raised by my mum in a single parent home. I'm one of 4 children. So to be honest, being a business owner and entrepreneur was something I never even knew was possible. My mum struggled a lot. She worked long hours. She wasn't around a lot. Luckily, I had a great older sister that sort of cared for me a lot of the time. So I actually didn't even know this world was possible. When I became a teenager, I got the part-time job at a retailer. And I used to work a lot of hours out of my school just to try and, make enough money for the things that I wanted at the time as a teenager. And so for me, I didn't even know this was a possibility. I graduated high school. I went straight into college. I became a teacher and just went down that path. And then when I met Ben, Yeah, he was always a natural sort of entrepreneur. He, as a young kid, would have, the lemonade stands, or he was doing here in Australia, people put glow in the dark numbers on their curbs in front of their homes. So when emergency services like ambulances and police are trying to find your house, it makes it quicker for them to locate your property. So he would go around and sell that, curb painting as a service. So Ben sort of always was trying different things. And so when we got together, it was, sort of opened my eyes to what really was possible. And then after we were married and we traveled, we had Trent, we started sitting down, because we went from double income and no kids to a single income, because I really wanted to be at home with my kids. Mm-hmm. And so we really decided, hey, what are we going to do differently? I don't want to have to work. I want to be at home with my kids as much as I can. And so at the time, we got given a book on property investing. So we started out in the property investing space and did that successfully for a number of years, built up a property portfolio. And then Ben started out, looked at shares and, bonds and so on. And then we even were in cryptocurrency for a little space a little bit later than that. And then really for us, where we were like, wow, this could actually work, was online business. So that's when we started to get into the online business space, and we were like, wow, the returns on this compared to all of the other strategies were just really great. And so we started, in the online business space, buying and selling websites and doing a few things online. And that's really where we were able to quit the traditional jobs and work full-time for ourselves. So it was pretty exciting. It took us around, I think our goal was 5 years, and we did it like a month or two shy. So it was pretty amazing but it all sort of came together very close to the end. When you think you have a goal and you think, I don't think I'm going to get there. I don't think I'm going to get there. And then it all sort of, happens, and it's such a great momentum at the end. And so, we got there. And I remember we were so proud of ourselves, and we're like, wow, we did it. And no one else seemed to really here in Australia, everyone's very casual. Being an entrepreneur isn't necessarily viewed very positively like I think it is in the States. So for us, but it was really exciting for us. And to be honest, the biggest thing that it has meant to us is our financial freedom, the freedom to spend our time the way that we choose. And obviously we get the opportunity to travel with our kids. And I just love being with my kids as much as I can. So I've been able to be at home for all 4 of them and raise them. And it's great as a family. Like my youngest 2 children don't even know a time when daddy went to work. Yeah. They just think dad works in the office. So, it's great. We love it.
So, I think you guys had like one of the telltale strategies of business is kind of self-funding. So you guys built a portfolio of, let's say, rental properties or homes to kind of cash flow your business. So I want to kind of talk about how did that concept come into fruition? Because obviously you found digital marketing online later on, but you guys had enough initiative to kind of say, we're going to build a portfolio to start cash flowing.
Sure. So Ben and I are big believers on finding someone who has the result that you want, mm-hmm. and do anything to get them to mentor you. So we were really lucky that we were sort of involved in a real estate investor community, and we found someone that lived fairly locally, within a couple of hours of us, and they had the result that we wanted. They were financially free. They had a wealth of properties underneath them, and they were literally able to live off the cash flow from those properties. So for us at the time, that was the goal. So we said, hey, how can we work with you? And so we were able to do that and pay them for their time and, come up with a win-win scenario for both of us. And, I really believe that, learning knowledge and information is really what any entrepreneur values. You can take all of your assets away, but no one can ever take your knowledge and from you. And so really that's how we're able to have success in the property space and be able to, like you say, have positively geared properties. So they were bringing in some cash flow, and that really, we were able to turn that into the online space, and then we were able to grow it forward from there.
So, just by the way you're defining these different topics and these different subject matters, is like you're a super learner, right? I would think that you superly absorb content really quickly. So I want you to kind of take who you are and be able to define yourself just using 3 to 5 words.
Oh, that's a challenging one. Okay. I would say I'm pretty focused and determined. Once I set my mind that I want something to happen, I try and just not let any obstacles stop me. So secondly, I'm quite Christian orientated. Our family is a Christian family, so that's obviously a big part of our identity. Thirdly, what would I say? This is a tricky one. Yeah, just family orientated, I guess. For me, what I love about being an entrepreneur and a business owner is I can cater that around our family and particularly my kids' needs. So I'm a mum first and then an entrepreneur and a business owner second. And that gives me the freedom and the flexibility to be there for my kids when they have things at school and assemblies and they're getting awards or sports days, sports carnivals, that I can be there. So that's what I ultimately love. So family orientated is a really big one for me. I love goals, so I'm pretty focused and determined. That's pretty much all that comes to mind.
So like just play off the family now. Like obviously, prime example in the US, family businesses are kind of more legacy businesses, but there's always hurdles. There's always a feud or a push and pull or a disagreement to a certain extent. And considering that you are partnering with your best friend, your spouse, obviously there may be some hurdles. So how do you guys usually kind of divide and conquer between the business and personal life, considering that you and your husband run the business day to day?
Yes, that is a great question. And in the early days, it was a really big transition to being together 24/7. A lot of relationships, you both go do your separate jobs or work, and then you come back at the end of the day. When you are running a business like ours, you're together all the time. And because we work from home, like we have a great office space, but obviously it's all in the one place. So it was a big transition for us. I think the years that we spent traveling together, were a really great foundation, because a lot of the countries that we traveled to, barely anyone spoke English. So you got no one else to talk to. You're going to talk to your spouse. So that worked really well for us. We spent a lot of time together for pretty much that whole year. But yeah, there's always going to be challenges to working with the people that you're related to. Earlier, back when we started online business, Ben's brother was actually involved in the business. And that obviously brought some challenges and ups and downs. And ultimately, he decided he wanted to go back to, a traditional sort of job role, which was fine. But yeah, of course, there's going to be ups and downs. I find what works best for Ben and I is we try and stay in our own lanes, as we call it. So I'm really good at the logistics and client support and, the books and all of that sort of thing. Ben's really good at strategizing, coming up with ideas, writing copy. He's really good at helping the clients think big picture and putting the next steps in place. So for us, we try and stay in our own lane. So if I know a particular task needs doing and Ben's really good at that, I leave that for him. And then I do my tasks, and we find that works really well for us, that we can just cater to each other's strengths and then just respect the job that person has done and just stay in our own lane, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes perfect sense. So I want you to kind of think about that. I mean, obviously, like any business, there's hurdles and there's things that you need to overcome on the journey. And you were talking about the first 3 years, and then you got to year 5. And so between year 4 and year 5, things just started compounding and started happening very rapidly. So I want you to think about a time that you can go back to. And if you had a 5-minute window to pop in and talk to a younger version of yourself and tell that younger version one thing to dial in, one thing to change to make that success happen a lot faster, when would you go back to and what would you say?
Wow, that's a great question. I think in the initial stages, we were property investing. And obviously, when you're doing that, you are limited with your borrowing capabilities, right? How much money you can loan versus, how much you are earning. So for us at the time, we sort of got to the point where we were sort of capped out. So I think I would probably go back to myself at that point and really open our eyes to the other possibilities. Because when we started putting our resources, like we said, into online business, we were just like, almost couldn't believe the returns that we were getting compared to what, traditionally people get excited, about 10% is great. So that, I guess for me, that's where I would, because if we'd started that so much earlier, you know, who knows where we would be now. But, you know, I guess life is a journey, and, you know, it all goes the way it's supposed to. But yeah, I guess I would open my eyes to the possibilities further back than what we found them out, I guess.
I think it's definitely an interesting answer. So, I mean, I think if I was to ask that answer to Ben, he'd probably have like a different answer comparison to yours, right? So I want to kind of talk about historically. So you're saying when you grew up, like you didn't have access to entrepreneurs. So I'm thinking maybe Ben did. Do you know Ben's history? Did he have access? Does his dad or his mom or anybody in his history, a particular entrepreneur that he's learned from?
Sure. Ben's parents weren't entrepreneurial at all, but he did have an uncle that was very entrepreneurial. He had a couple of his own businesses, has now become a very successful builder, like in the construction space. And so I think that he was a real mentor for Ben. He looked up to him and saw some of the freedom and flexibility that he had compared to his own parents. That were, you know, had the more confines of a traditional job. So I think that was definitely something Ben looked up to. Ben actually grew up, I don't know if you'll believe this, on a farm here in Australia that had no electricity. No electricity to the property. And so they would on solar power and then would have like a battery backup. And so what would happen is his dad works, I don't know what you call it in the States, we call it FIFO here, fly in, fly out. So you basically go away to work for a week or two and then you come back. And so Ben's dad would be gone for 2 weeks at work. And so as the oldest child, he would have to fix it. And so I think what Ben got really good at was fixing and solving problems. There would be a problem, there'd be no power, and he would have to fix it. And so originally Ben became an electrician. His dad was like, wow, you're good at fixing power and electricity. Why don't you do that? And because there wasn't really, his parents didn't sort of lay out many options. There wasn't like, hey, what about a business or what about something entrepreneurial? It was like, you go do a trade or you go to college. And so Ben sort of became an electrician just because he was good at solving problems. So I think the skills that he learned very young, like in his teenage years, solving problems, obviously apply really well to business, because in our business, we run Ben runs 2 businesses with other partners, as well as youth in business that we run together. And so I think as business owners, a lot of the time you are just a problem solver. Things come up and you have to think about the quickest, simplest way to overcome that. So I think the skills that he learnt there gave him a good grounding, as well as his uncle, who was a really great mentor as a business owner as well.
I think that's definitely fascinating. I mean, together you guys have the one main business that kind of stemmed from real estate that built up into the digital assets currently right now. You have 4 kids, but then Ben also has 2 other business ventures as well. So I want to kind of talk about like your morning routines. I would think that Ben probably wakes up extra early to kind of manage and juggle things, and you probably wake up pretty early to organize the kids and then dive into the business. But I want you to kind of define, what does that morning routine look like for both of you?
Sure. I like to get up early. I like to get up early and just sort of set the intention for the day, have a bit of space for myself. I like to do a bit of yoga if I can, but I'm not very consistent. But, have that time for a bit of, meditation or reflection before the kids are up. And you can imagine with 4 kids, 3 are boys. It's a loud house over here. So I like that sort of time to center myself, and then the kids are up. I don't often get long. It's like 20 minutes if I'm lucky, sometimes 30. Then the kids are up, and like I say, yeah, my focus is them. So helping them get out the door and all packed and sorted for the day. Then when I come back from dropping the kids at school, then I'm right into the business. So for me, it's sort of 9 o'clock, I'm in there and ready to go hit the ground running. Ben's schedule, is quite different to mine. He tends to get up a bit later than I do. Often with his other businesses, he has some American clients. So sometimes he can be up quite late here, talking to his clients in the States. And so he sometimes tends to sleep in a bit later, but he'll still get up and see the kids, before they go out for their day. And then he's straight hit the ground running into the business. He does quite a good job. Like, I know a lot of people are like, wow, one business is a lot to manage, but he runs 3. But one of them is a a passion for the gold space, the gold and silver, that he started out of his hobby business. So him and his cousin loved, here in Australia, you can prospect for gold. I'm sure you can there too. And so they'd go out on big camping trips, try and find some gold and come back. And so they were able to turn that into a business. And it was just a hobby, really. But now they have mining leases, and they're negotiating with mining companies, and have actually grown it quite massively. They launched it during COVID, so it's only 3 years old. But yeah, doing some really exciting things in terms of the mining space now. And yeah, his other business is one that he grew with a really good friend, and they were able to grow a digital marketing company together as well. So yeah, Ben is always trying to juggle the three of them, but he does a pretty good job. Yeah.
I think that's I mean, obviously, I think like talking to, like, I haven't had an opportunity to speak to Ben as of yet, but I mean, just hearing the synergy between you and Ben, like the equality is there, the ambitions there, the entrepreneurism is there. So I think from the educational standpoint, like you're already astute, right? And I could just look at the background and I see dozens and dozens of books, right? So I want you to kind of talk about what books did you read on your journey early on that can help a new entrepreneur today that you would like to recommend?
Sure. So one of the first books that got us into property investing, it is written by an Australian, so I'm not sure if you have it in America. It's called Zero to 230 Properties in like 22 years. And so that's really what us got us excited, because here traditionally, I don't know about the States, a lot of people that get into property want to negative gear, so borrow more money, the property's a drain on them financially, they're having to make up the shortfall in the mortgage between what the rent's coming back. Mm-hmm. So we really opened our eyes to, wow, we can actually invest in property and actually make a profit, like actually run cash flow. So that was a new concept for us. We'd never heard of that before. Obviously, the classics like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we read in those early days. Another book, we actually have a media club in the youth and business program. So they're obviously for a teen audience, but books that we really recommend for teenagers to really open their eyes to the possibilities in business and entrepreneurship for kids. What are some other books that we read in the early days? Ben is much better to ask this question for than me. He is always, we took a holiday to New Zealand, took the kids on a snow trip recently, and Ben listened to 2 whole books while he was snowboarding. So he had his earplugs in and he was on the slopes and listening to books at the same time. So he's a much better person to ask that question to. I know Ben loves The Greatest Salesman I think The Greatest Salesman in the World is one of his favorite ones. Yeah, I think Rich Dad Poor Dad is obviously a classic. We actually played that game with the kids, how they escape, like the cash flow board game, and that my son Trent has loved that since he was we started playing that when he was only 8 or 9, and he was quite young, and you have to explain the concept of shares and bonds and so on, but it was really great, the concepts that it taught them, and that's obviously by Robert Kiyosaki, his cash flow board game. But yeah, just that concept of they can escape the rat race without even entering it, and just your expenses and cash flow and all of those sorts of things are such great skills for kids.
So I want to talk about, like, ideally you have a business that you're helping both the kids and the parents, but in any business there's a particular avatar. So it has to be a particular state of mind for the kids and a state of mind for the parents. So ideally, who is the best combination of kid and parent that you guys are looking for in your business?
For us, we found our target demographic is the mum in the home, because mums make over 80% of the purchasing decisions in the home. So that's obviously, a really big key factor in a family. And I think, if the mum's on board, things happen. Dads are great. We love dads. We love, our kids love Ben, their dad. But, mums, I think, are really good implementers. And so, we find if the mum is on board, it works really, really well. And so we find, obviously, depending on the age of your children, younger children, obviously, we're talking when Trent was 7 or 8, he needed help, with getting the business up and running and implementing it, and obviously supervising him. He had a little herb business at the time. So he would cut off herbs from his garden, package them up, and I would go with him to deliver them to his customers. Now, at that age, he was 7 or 8. I think he was doing around $30 an hour, which is pretty cool for a kid that was technically, wasn't old enough for a job. So I think back to your question that, with kids today, obviously as they get older, so Trent's now 15. Recently, my kids ran some markets and they had a couple of ideas for products. And I was like, right, you guys know where to find suppliers, you know how to negotiate with them. And they literally did the whole thing. So they had an idea for a product. They went online, they found a few people, they did all the email and communication and everything. And it was literally just when they needed my credit card, because they don't have credit cards yet, they have bank accounts, that they came to me and I looked over the numbers and I was like, okay, yep, here's the credit card. And they ordered their stock. They obviously paid me back from their own bank accounts, but they have the skills now, my oldest two are 15 and 11, to be able to do that, to be able to negotiate, to be able to source products, to be able to communicate with, their suppliers as well as their customers. So I really feel like for kids in business, it's such a great opportunity. As for the kids, they love obviously the money side of it that they're making, and they get really excited about the cash flow. But as parents, it's the skills that our kids are developing that we really get excited about. So our eldest Trent used to be very, very, very shy. So that's originally why we started this. We really wanted him to get out of his shell, and a business was a great excuse for him to do that. He'd have to go and promote himself. He'd have to go and talk to people. He'd have to learn to sell. And so he was able to massively be able to engage with people and have really good conversations and promote himself in his business. And so that came out of it, as well as our kids working together towards that common goal. Kids fight, they have disagreements, but ultimately when they're at a business and with these markets that they ran, they're working together. And that's really lovely as a parent to watch your kids working together and going, hey, yes, we may not always see eye to eye, but we have this goal and we're all going to work together to get there. So that's a really great plus side.
So, I think it's definitely interesting. To the point to where your kids are leveraging and they're doing the communications with the vendors. Are they leveraging the fact that they're younger and they're putting that in the email, or that the actual vendor has no clue that they're dealing with a 11-year-old or 15-year-old on the other end of those messages?
No, they have no clue whatsoever. To my knowledge, they are just acting like any other customer out there. So, there might be some spelling mistakes in the emails, but I think often with, especially if you're dealing with overseas suppliers, English is their second language. So I don't know whether they pick up on it or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a really, really, really sweet aspect to what you guys are doing. And I think you guys are doing a phenomenal it's not just a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. And I think that if more business owners kind of realize that and start the kids in programs like this, like the world would essentially be a better place, right? So I want you to kind of talk about words of wisdom for the ideal avatar. So you're talking about moms with kids, and I want you to kind of talk to them about how your program can kind of help them overcome any hurdles in growing their kids into becoming entrepreneurs.
Sure. Well, firstly, on our website at outearned.com, we do have some parenting resources, because we know often when kids are excited, they have an idea and the kids are really keen, right? They want to get out there. Often the parents are like, hold on, what are the regulations on this? And how does the tax work? And how does this? And so I think the biggest, words of advice that I could give to a parent out there that has a kid that is excited about an idea or, being an entrepreneur, is just go with their flow and their motivation. Try and just support them in any way that you can. Try not to be like, but what about this? And what about that? And what, because that really will dampen their spark for it. So really just try and support them in any way that you can. Obviously, sometimes you do have things that you need to check around. But a lot of the times, I'm like in America, you have a tax-free threshold. I'm sure we have one here in Australia. So kids, don't have to pay any tax here till at least over $20,000 they have to earn. So hey, don't even worry about that. Just let your kids enjoy it. make some sales, then when they start creeping up to that sort of amount in capital, they can start looking at things like tax. So I think my biggest words of advice, if your kids do have that spark of, interest, is just to nurture it, almost like you would a little flame. Nurture it and let them think and dream big. That's what we all love about kids, is that they dream big and anything's possible. And so I think as adults, as much as we can nurture and support that, obviously in a safe way, is really the best thing that we can do.
I want the U.S. listeners that are listening to this right now, like the fact that you said that you guys have a tax cap of $20,000. In the U.S., ours is $600. So if you make $600, you have to pay taxes on it. So and probably need to move to Australia, the land out there, just on that note alone, right? So how does our audience members or the listener find you? Like, where do you want to send them? To social media, to your website?
It's really up to you. So we do have a Facebook page, Youth in Business HQ, if you want to check us out. The best place to probably go is our website, which is youthinbusiness.com. That's where we have all of our resources, our 101 winning kids business ideas. We also have, so if you want to check out the 1K Club and the 10K Club, you can click on those and really see what those kids have been up to. If you look at the $20 challenge on the website, we have really fun videos. So the kids have actually completed the challenge and they've gone on there and they've made videos about what they've done. And often they're really funny. Kids are dancing and there's really good music, and they're also sharing what they've learned along the way. Being a business owner and an entrepreneur, it's all a learning journey, right? And so the things that you learn and the takeaway are often more important than the cash itself. And so that's really what's great. So if you want to check it out and get, we have a free training there too. So if you're wanting to watch some training with your kids and really open their eyes to the possibilities for young people out there, we really, love young people and want to help as many young kids as we can. So, check it out.
So, that kind of leads me to some bonus questions. And the entire time when we're talking, so those that are watching the video, I'm looking at your background, I'm looking at all these books, and we talked about books that you recommend earlier. And I'm wondering, please tell me that you guys are in the making of creating like a book of what you're doing or a step-by-step guide for kids. Please tell me yes.
This is something that we've actually been on and off for years. So back when we started, I think we were like 2 or 3 years in, we're like, yeah, we're going to write a book. We're going to write a book. And, it's sort of one of those projects that we started and, and then other things have come up and then, had another baby. And so it gets put on the back burner or another project comes along. So it's definitely something that we would like to do. We do have a very, very draft version of a book. But I don't feel, as much as I'm a teacher and I love literature, I don't know if writing is my strongest suit, but it is something that we need to get onto, and that, we basically should just outsource, have all the content and get it done. So we would love to do it and, just share, like we've had kids that have just amazing businesses. One of our kids, Ned, he joined the program at 11. He won the International Be the Change Award. So basically, Ned is passionate about the environment and sustainability. And so his business sells bamboo toothbrushes and a whole range of other products that are really supporting the environment. And part of his proceeds, he donates back to ocean cleanups. And a lot of the kids that we work with have a component where they're giving back. Our kids do in their business as well. So they're donating to charities that are meaningful to them. So Ned supports ocean cleanup charities, and he is all about sustainability products. And Ned is now 16 and he's part of our 10K club. He's been able to get his products into mass, like retirement homes with all of his products and, getting massive repeat orders as well as, retailers all over the country. So, the sky really is the limit. And, I hope, parents and kids are really excited to get out there and hit the ground running.
Yeah, just from a system standpoint, I see so much opportunity for you guys to kind of create a series of books. I imagine like your top 10 and your 10,000 club, right? interviewing them, getting the testimonials, which you already have, transcribing those. Then you guys put some input on the strategies that you put into there. Then you have 10 chapters, and then you have a book that's ready to go pretty quickly that talks to the person about the kids and how they're doing it. And then you guys are also doing the influence and step-by-steps on how did you get them from point A to point B. I think it is definitely a top seller that's just waiting to happen. You just got to get it out sooner than later.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for that. I needed a reminder, and yeah, thank you so much for your words of advice. That's definitely a great way to go about it for sure.
Yeah. So into the last bonus question. All right. I want you to kind of think about if you had an opportunity to spend 24 hours with anyone, and it could be someone that you've never met, someone from the past, someone that's present. It doesn't matter who it is, but it's that person for you to spend 24 hours with. You're going to be able to learn. It's just you and that person. Who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I would have to say Sir Richard Branson. And I think what I love about him is his action taking. I think what I've learned the most, like I said, find someone, a mentor who's, you know, further down the path that has the success that you're looking for. And what I love about him, that I was really hesitant to learn early on, is just taking action. I think as adults, we get stuck in things being perfect. Like, I can't launch this business because this isn't perfect. And so what we learned early on was just get that marketing video out there. It's not perfect. It's not 100%. But it's better to have, you know, we say it's better to have the unperfect thing done than the perfect thing never done. And so I think for me, Sir Richard Branson really encompasses someone who takes action, doesn't have any excuses, just dives in and gets things done. And obviously, you know, me being the systematic, person, I like to see results and the path to results. So I think he's obviously a great example of, just diving in, taking action, and obviously, now that he's built such a successful empire, obviously has a lot of systems that have helped him get there. So, I think he would be a pretty cool person, also a fun person to hang out with for the day.
Yeah. I think if I asked Ben the same question, he'd probably say the same thing, because I think Ben's following in the footsteps of Richard Branson. I mean, Richard Branson has like several dozen businesses that are all underneath the one umbrella, the one brand, that all, they're different business units, but they're all co-branded. So, I mean, I definitely see you guys heading down that route, and I definitely appreciate your answer. So going into closing, I like to give whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity to become the host of Boss Uncaged, and I become the guest. So now you're the host of Boss Uncaged. I'm your guest. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me?
Oh, I didn't know you did this. This is exciting. So what are your long-term goals for Boss Uncaged with your podcast? Where do you see it going and the impact that it's making in the world?
So the more and more I dive into it, and every year that comes to fruition, and the more we scale and the more we grow, I see it becoming more of a media empire, right? And I'm not saying empire to be facetious. I'm saying it kind of like, okay, well, we have a podcast. What would that podcast look like as a radio station or internet radio? What would that radio station then look like as a Roku station or a Roku TV? And again, diversifying the media to kind of get a larger reach. Because the goal is, if there's 8 billion people, if I could just get 1% of those people to understand business and understand strategies like you and I were talking, then obviously the scale of entrepreneurs would have access to resources to help them grow and prosper on a global scale.
Fantastic. Very exciting. I can't wait to see your journey and see where you go with that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Was there a person in your life that was a mentor or an example of an entrepreneur or a business owner that really led you to where you are today? Is there anyone pivotal in your past that really shaped you as an entrepreneur yourself?
I would say it probably came in my later days. I mean, it kind of came once I was an adult and I started looking for people that were doing things that I wanted to do, right? Obviously, you have the far-fetched, right? You have the Steve Jobs and you have the people that are kind of like out of reach to a certain extent. But then once I started the podcast is when I really started getting the opportunity to interview people like yourself that I look as a two-way street. Like, you guys are helping me by mentoring me through what you guys are doing. And so, like, I've interviewed probably about 400 people so far. I think that is my core of who I am and who I'm becoming because I'm interviewing such brilliant minds.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Ben's free to come on. Would you like him to join?
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes left.
Do you have time? Sorry, his call went a bit longer than he planned, but I've just messaged him to come join us if you'd like to meet him, if you have anything you'd like to ask him. Thank you so much. I've loved being on your podcast. To be honest, this is only I've only done a couple of interviews on my own. And so I was a bit nervous coming on today, but it's been so lovely chatting, and hope that I've helped your audience as much as I can, and in the world of young people in business, I guess.
Well, I think you definitely did. Because I mean, ideally, to your point, like most kids may be 7 and, let's do the lemonade stand. But there's so much more you can do to kind of groom a kid to be more at scale. I mean, prime example is Will. The fact that he crossed over $1 million and he's not even 20 years old right now. It's a golden opportunity for people to leverage their kids and make their kids their own assets.
Sure.
Hey, did you want to come on?
Ben, yes.
Hey, bud, how you doing?
How you doing, man? I feel like I know you. Like, I know your whole story. I know your history. I know about the kids. I know about everything. But this is the first time I'm putting a name to the face. So I definitely appreciate you on the show today.
Oh, very cool. No, thanks for having me. Sorry, I was just on another call. So I thought the show was handling, but good. Happy to meet you, man. So pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great. I think Sheri knocked it out the park. I think our listeners got so much fruitful information based upon what you guys are doing. And it's just kind of like, I want to ask you just a general question before we close out, because we've been on for about an hour. But what is your driving motivation? Because I mean, obviously you have multiple different businesses, you're mining gold, you're helping kids, you grew up on a farm, like all these different things that made you who you are. But what is the ambition coming from?
I guess the ambition is, I mean, you get to a certain, I'll just take it back a step. You get to a certain point where like money's cool and everything, but what do you do next, right? Like, what sort of impact are you going to leave? Like, if I died tomorrow, like, how many people did you help? And I think that's probably the big impact for me. So being able to be of service and helping people is probably the big part of it. So particularly kids, I think the biggest change or biggest thing I can help this universe is to help kids actually start business and become entrepreneurs and help the next generation be better than the one that left it, right? So that's my big driving force. I mean, obviously I love gold, so I do that, and that's fun for me. My other business I run, where I'm helping businesses grow and scale, I love that too. So I think for me, like, the driving motivation behind it is like, how much value can you give to the universe, but also like, how many people can you help and basically lift the world up, so rising tide will lift all ships. So that's kind of
got it. So talking about the rising tide. So, I mean, obviously you have 4 kids, right? You have 3 boys and 1 girl. So in your household, if you're looking for an opportunity to leave behind a legacy, are you kind of thinking that, okay, maybe one of your businesses will kind of go down to your kids, or are you more inspiring them to create their own ventures and then run in that direction?
I'd like them to create their own things, right? So, and I think that's really important. More that they have the skill set to do it, right? So even if they want to be, let's say my kids want to be a scientist or something, it's not so entrepreneurial, and maybe they want to create the next health thing that's going to help millions of people. They're into robotics or something, right? I don't really care, as long as they're happy and they have a way to turn their passions into income. Like, that's the big bit. They need to be self-reliant in some ways. I think if we can teach our kids like how to sell, because even if they go into that field, maybe they're going to need to raise funding, or they're going to need to, even if they're a doctor or a dentist, they're better off being the business person that owns the practice, right? Or whatever it is, right? So like, whatever it is they want to go do, I don't think, if I can empower them to learn business skills while they're still at home, how to sell, what cash flow is, how to grow and scale, all of that kind of stuff, when they go out into the world, they're just going to have such an advantage. And I think that is the thing that I'd like them to do it on the things they're interested in, grow and scale it. I mean, that for me, that's way more important. I don't really want them. I mean, if they want to come work in my stuff, that's fine, but I would much rather them step out and be able to do it by themselves. That's the big part, right? So, yeah.
So it sounds like your legacy that you're leaving behind is not just the business, but it's also the steps and the education on how for them to be fruitful, and no matter what they choose to do.
Yeah, so I don't know if Sheri talked about it, but the way I explain it is the skill set of an entrepreneur. Did you talk about that?
No, here you go.
So this is the how I put it. I think if we can teach every young kid what we would call the skill set of an entrepreneur, that's going to be the most powerful thing. I mean, if you think about it, if Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos all were bankrupt tomorrow, like how long would it be before they're millionaires again? Do you reckon?
Yeah, like less than 30 days, probably
easily, right? And why is that? And it's because they have the skill set of an entrepreneur. They know how to turn their ideas into money, and that's the skill set that we want to teach kids. So one of the first things we do when kids start working with us is we run them through the $20 challenge. We literally say, hey, look, here's $20, turn it into as much money as you can in 30 days. Right.
Oh, I forgot to mention what the record was. Do you want to share that?
Oh, yeah. What is it at the moment?
So the record for our $20 challenge is over $5,000 in sales in 30 days. And that's literally kids coming up with an idea and going and testing it. Kids with no prior business experience or knowledge, literally just getting out and selling it before they build it, like we spoke about.
Yeah, it's super fun. So we have heaps of kids who do, like most kids will do over $500. Heaps of them do over $1,000 in that first 30 days. And I guess my thing is, like, if your kids were ever down to their last $20, right? And, even if they're adults, but they knew how to turn that $20, even if it was into $100 or $200, they'd never go hungry, right? They'd have the confidence to go out and achieve whatever they wanted to. And if we can teach that skill set to the rising generation, we could end homelessness, basically. So for me, it's about teaching kids that skill set of an entrepreneur, like, how do we take our ideas, create value, turn it into money, and be self-sufficient?
So, I mean, with that, and I'm asking both of you this question, out of all the achievements you've made, right, outside of having the 4 kids, which one is the most significant one to you guys to date?
Achievement?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say the biggest achievement is probably being married for, how long were we married for? 18 years. Yeah, 18 years and having a happy family like that. And, I think that's probably the biggest achievement of all the things we've achieved. So for me anyway.
I think it's definitely interesting. I mean, after everything that you're doing and you're building, and again, like you have that drive and that devotion to kind of create wealth and to create, money and to build businesses, you still kind of go back to being home central, all about the family. So I definitely want to kind of close out this episode to say that I think that you two are a hell of a couple. First of all, your business unit, I think, is definitely going to help change the world and inspire a lot of people to kind of look at their kids more so and listen to them than just pushing down their dreams and telling them to wait until they get a little bit older. So I definitely appreciate both of you being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciated being on. Do you want Ben to add his recommendations of books? Because he would do a much better job than I did.
Yeah. So I asked Sheri about books that she read on her journey that she would like to recommend to someone that's coming up in business that would definitely helpful for her. So I'm asking you the same question now.
Yeah, cool. So just getting started, like never really done much in business before, that sort of level?
Yeah, like, I mean, in your early days, I mean, obviously you've been in business a long period of time, but if you kind of look at a book that you would want to reread, and this is your first time doing business, which book would do that for you?
Yeah, I think I'd probably have to take a step back and because I was not good at managing money when I was younger, right? So, and I think there was like a whole bunch of mindset stuff I didn't know. So I think you'd have to start with something like Rich Dad Poor Dad or something like that. How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think, is really good. Is it the best, richest salesman in the world? What's that one? Greatest salesman in the world. I really love that story. And probably The Richest Man in Babylon. I think if you started with those 4 or 5 books, that'd be a great place to start. Oh man, there's so, I think, Atlas Shrugged would be a good one. There was the ones who sort of graduated a few books in.
That's a pretty deep.
That's kind of a deep, long book. But, I think if you read those books when you're a teenager, or like as you were starting out, it would give you the right perspective to go out and start. And then I'd probably get more specific. Like, let's say I wanted to be, a real estate mogul, I might read some books on real estate. Or if I wanted to be an internet entrepreneur, I'd probably read about that. Or if I wanted to learn some like really good sound business lessons, I'd probably look at some really good business books. So I think those are some pretty cool places to start. Mindset wise, I think if you want to read mindset stuff, I quite like Brian Tracy's stuff. I think that's really good. you're just sort of getting started, he's got heaps of cool stuff. But yeah, it's going to depend. From there, it's all about like, what do you want to achieve next? What is the next thing you need to learn? Do you need to learn marketing? Do you need to learn business? Do you need to learn like, what are the steps that you need? And everyone's going to be different. But I think if you read those couple of books to get started, you'd have the right foot forward. So
very cool. Very cool. And I know I keep saying the last question, but the more and more you keep speaking it, the more and more I keep thinking about more questions. And I promise you this will be the last question. I want you to kind of talk about like the fact that you guys are in Australia, but obviously you spread more on an international platform. Like again, local, national versus international are three different monsters. So how did you kind of get into the international market? How did you scale into that?
So international market, I guess for us, it was a little different because I have a big strength in paid ads, right? So, and I think podcasts are a great one. If you just, by the way, obviously we're on a podcast. So if you want to get into an international market, that works really well. I mean,
not that we have a podcast.
We don't do a podcast. So
you should. You definitely should.
You definitely should. I think that's a massive opportunity. I just haven't got there. But I think like if you want to go international, it's the same as being national. It's just about how you get your leads and how you sell them. So for us, like we've done events where we've spoken in the US or we've spoken in the UK, and we've had big rooms and we filled them because we knew how to do that here, and we just did that over there. So that's how we originally started. But I think, like just we would run paid marketing and make sure we did that profitably. And
field events.
Yeah, field events. Or even like we've been with another business I have, we've been breaking into the US market, and we're just providing value, free trainings and book a call and strategy sessions and stuff like that. I mean, it's the same. The cool thing about the internet, it's a great leveler, right? So if you speak English, you pretty much have got the Western world at your fingertips. So you can go, if it's working in Australia, it's going to work in the US, it's going to work in the UK. The messaging is going to be similar, so it's just about targeting the right people, offering them what they want, being able to help people. And you'll find that if you go in with that attitude, you'll make sales. So, and having a good offer, you got to have a good offer, right? So,
yeah.
But yeah, so going international, if you want to go international, just do what you're doing nationally or locally, just on a bigger scale, and go out to more people. So,
and you don't think that the cultural aspect is a shift in like the lingo and the marketing and the messaging? Because I mean, obviously Australia, UK, and US, we all speak English, but there's terminology differences and there's cultural differences.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Like
for sure.
Here's a fun one. Like I'm speaking in America, right? And there's certain things that you say in Australia you don't say in America. Okay, like there's a couple of them. One of them is.
You probably shouldn't say this on the podcast.
Oh, okay. So like, and the thing is that people actually like will laugh at it, as long as you're willing to laugh at yourself and be like, oh, I didn't realize that was a thing or whatever. Most people will be pretty forgiving. Here's just a little example. Like one would be, I was in LA and I was like, I was talking about like when people come to events, and I'm like, when the rock up rate, and people in America are like, what the hell's rocks got to do with anything? Why would you bring rocks? Whereas in Australia, that would be like how many people attended or came or whatever, And, but yeah, like literally it was like a 5-minute confusing thing. Or like 200 people in a room, they're like looking at me like I'm an idiot. But by the time it's all explained and everyone has a laugh, it's all good. So I think don't let the fear of other people's cultures and things, scare you. As long as you're respectful and, if you make a mistake, you're happy to laugh about it. I think you'll be fine. So
cool. Well, I definitely appreciate that insight, Ben and Sheri. I mean, I think we could probably sit on this and talk for hours on end, but obviously we're all entrepreneurs, right? So I don't want to suck up any more of your time. I think that you guys were an absolute delight being on the show today. I think that if anyone that's listening that has kids, if they're not inspired, then obviously I think that they don't have a heartbeat at this point. So they kind of need to figure out their next steps. And obviously you guys are the next direction for the kids.
Oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us. I know I just came in at the end there like hell random, but thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really enjoyed it. Really hope that we've opened, people's minds to the possibilities for young people out there, and wish you guys all the best on your entrepreneurial journey.
Great. S.A. Grant, over and out.